Good morning, Rajiv. How are you?
Morning, Rahul. Very well. Nice to see you again.
How are things with you in the sort of COVID situation? How is it? How is it looking?
Well, I guess we are all trying to find some certainty in uncertain times. It's a new experience for everyone. It's a bittersweet experience, let's put it like that. Some of us who can afford it are not too unhappy to be home. But when you see what is happening around you, both with businesses and with the masses, it is certainly more bitter than sweet. So every day brings a new learning on how to cope with this, whether in terms of business, in terms of one's own emotions, in medical terms.
It's quite surreal. I mean, I don't think anyone imagined that the world would be locked down in this way. I don't even think during the World War, the world was locked down. I think even then things were open. So it's a unique and devastating sort of phenomenon.
But I will say this, that I have friends and family starting from Japan because of our association with Kawasaki, people I know in Singapore, people I know in so many places in Europe, and people in the US, of course, close friends and family in New York, in Michigan, in DC. And when you say the world has never been locked down like this, India has been locked down, what I have referred to as a draconian lockdown. This kind of lockdown I am not hearing about from anywhere else. All my friends and family living across the world have always been free to step out, to take a walk, to go and buy something they require, to go and visit someone and say hello. So in terms of the social and emotional aspects of this lockdown, they seem to have been in a much better place.
And it came suddenly also. So you came in suddenly. And the shocking thing to me, frankly, the point you made about the bittersweet. Look, well-off people can deal with this type of a situation. They live at home. They have a ecosystem which is comfortable. But what it's been for the poor people, for migrants, it's completely devastating. They've lost confidence actually. काफी लोगों ने मुझे बोला कि बिल्कुल भरोसा खो गए हैं, भरोसा ही नहीं बचा. And that I think is a very sad thing and a dangerous thing for the country.
And I think right from the beginning, this is my view, whether it was in terms of how this problem was to be perceived. I don't understand why, despite being an Asian country, we sought not to look at what was happening east, but we looked at, at Italy and France and Spain and the UK and subsequently the US, which are really not the right benchmarks in any sense, whether it's by inherent immunity, temperature, demography, predisposition to thrombosis, etc., everything that the scientists and doctors have spoken of. We should never have been looking there, even in terms of how to approach this from a medical point of view, starting with the bogey of medical infrastructure. We are all aware that there can be no medical infrastructure that can be adequate to combat something like this. But nobody was willing to explain the maths to us that we are so many people and if so many are vulnerable, 5% or whatever it is, this is what that number looks like and this is how we are preparing ourselves, or perhaps we cannot prepare ourselves. Maybe that's not a politically appropriate thing to say. But as Narayan Murthy always says, when in doubt, disclose. I think we have fallen very short of disclosing facts, logic, and the truth. And this has then got amplified and instilled such an enormous fear in people that people seem to think that the contagion is equal to a contagious cancer or something. And now to change the mind of people and bring them back on board and make them comfortable with the thought of quote unquote living with the virus, which seems to be the new narrative coming from government now, it's going to take a long time. What do you feel? This is how I have seen it.
I was speaking to some experts and some specialists, and right in the early days of the lockdown, one of them told me, and which struck in my mind, which he said that look, realize that the moment you apply a full lockdown, you're changing the nature of the disease. You're
Right.
moving from a non-fatal disease to a fatal disease in the minds of people. And once
Right.
you've done that, then to reverse that, that is going to take significant amount of time, and it's going to take a lot of effort. And
Right.
and he also said that, look, don't view the lockdown as a on-off switch. It's not going to be an on-off switch, because once you have moved into a lockdown, switching it off again, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely
Right.
complicated. I liked your point about we looked west and not east. Why do you think we looked west?
I guess, as some people say, it's the first time that something like this, as opposed to TB or pneumonia or diarrhea, something as simple as diarrhea that apparently kills 100,000 largely children in India. Here is something that struck in the heart of the developed world. uh, and when the rich and famous get affected, it always makes a bigger headline. As someone said in the very early days of this problem, that 8,000 kids die of starvation in Africa every day. Who cares, beyond the point? In civil society, we are not even aware of this fact. So I think primarily the sensation was because affluent people in developed countries were vulnerable. And perhaps some people inferred कि अगर इनको ऐसा हो सकता है तो फिर हम तो कहाँ के नहीं रहे, this kind of feeling. And that is why I have often said to people that, to my mind as a layman, I saw from the beginning that there were four choices before us. At one extreme, on the left, if I may say so, is the choice of a hard lockdown, as you said, which implies a almost airtight, impervious lockdown. And to the best of my knowledge, this has not happened anywhere in the world. Because to physically constrain yourself to your home and see absolutely no one. On the other extreme, I would say is, business as usual. Just ignore it, carry on, jo hoga hoga type of thing. Nobody says this either. So everybody's trying to find a middle path, I think, between these two extremes. I think, unfortunately, India not only looked west, it went to the Wild West, I think, in the sense we stayed more towards the impervious side. We tried to implement a hard lockdown, but which was still porous. So I think we have ended up with the worst of both worlds. On the one hand, a porous virus makes sure that the porous lockdown makes sure that the virus will still exist. And as you said, it is still waiting to hit you when you unlock. So you have not solved that problem. But you have definitely decimated the economy. You flattened the wrong curve. It's not the infection curve, it's the GDP curve. This is what we have ended with, the worst of both worlds. In my view, what should have been done is something more right of center, which is the kind of stuff that we are hearing out of Japan and Sweden. And people, when they hear about this in terms of being articulated as herd immunity, tend to think that herd immunity means, let the vulnerable die. It doesn't mean that at all. They're missing the details that whether it's in terms of sanitization, masks, distancing, Sweden, Japan, etc. are following all these practices. But they are not trying to go further into the unproductive zone, as you said, and make something that is relatively benign and manageable appear to be fatal and beyond control. So I think, unfortunately, we have a quasi-hard lockdown, I would say, which has given us the worst of both worlds.
And looking at our situation, it's completely different. We have migrants, we have daily wage labor, and for some reason we looked west. Interesting question to me is, why didn't we look internally for our own solution? Instead of looking to the west or even to the east, why didn't we say, okay, we're actually a confident country, let's look at ourselves and let's come out with an Indian solution, which is, sort of what you do with your motorcycles. So why was that not the natural impulse?
So if you were to kind of have the luxury of going back to middle of March, जब प्रधानमंत्री जी ने पहले वो जनता कर्फ्यू अनाउंस किया, फिर उन्होंने the first lockdown अनाउंस किया,
Yeah.
If you could go back then, to your mind, how would you have crafted a different roadmap for the last 3 months?
Look, hindsight is 2020. Okay, so it's much easier for me to now tell you how I would have crafted it. But what our discussion internally in the Congress party was at the time that the response has to be decentralized. The central government has to operate as a support system and as an enabler. There are certain things that the central government needs to do, air traffic, railways, etc., and that it does. But then it moves the battle to the district, moves the battle to the chief ministers, and allows them and enables them to fight. Now, if you look at what has happened after the lockdown, which by the way, I've been calling a failed lockdown because it's the only lockdown in the world where the disease is actually increasing after we're opening up.
Sure.
What you're finding is you're going back to that anyway. The central government has backed off and has now said, okay, we are going to be forced to leave it to the states. So the correct response is actually happening organically. Because that's
but now it is happening. But
no, it's too late.
To our perception as a common citizen, it is now happening as a passing of the buck, not as a passing of strategy.
Well, that's fine. That might be the case, but the result is that India has had a 2-month pause button, and then India is now going back and reacting the way it should have reacted on day one, and now the country has taken over. Right? And then you can see different strategies coming out. You can see a strategy in Punjab, you can see a strategy in Chhattisgarh, you can see a strategy in Maharashtra. Some will do better than the others, but you've got a more bespoke response where your costs will suddenly drop. The ability to deal with the situation will improve. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, and I think this is absolutely fundamental. I saw what the Germans have done and what some of the Americans have done, what the Koreans are doing, what the Japanese have done. Massive injection of money to save the economy. And it doesn't matter. Look, I'm speaking to a big business guy. It doesn't matter. You don't view it like big business, small business, laborer, not laborer. You view it as our biggest resource is our economy. We have to, at all cost, protect our economy. Whoever has to be supported right now should be supported, period, the end. So that would be the second component of a strategy. Some people argue, support the small and medium businesses. Absolutely, 100%. But there's a link between small and medium businesses and Mr. Bajaj. Small and medium businesses cannot operate without the big businesses. So you have to see it as a holistic structure. See, the central thing, in my view, and this is something that in my little experience I've learned, is in India, if you want to do something, be compassionate. Be compassionate, listen. And the country will automatically tell you what it is desiring. So there are people right now screaming in pain, and the most obvious are the manual laborers, the daily wages, and maybe the farmers, and then the small and medium business. But big business is also screaming in pain because even they can't see a future. So huge component of it is building confidence. The leadership to build confidence to say, okay, listen, we are here. The country has had a terrible time. There's a virus that has hurt everybody. Now we are going to support everybody and carry everybody out, help carry everybody out together from this situation. So there's an empathy that has to be built into it where the Indian citizen, whether he is big business, medium business, laborer, farmer, says, हाँ भाई, हो जाएगा, निकल जाएंगे, नैया पार हो जाएगी. That feeling has to come. And that's my main issue, is that when you have a top-down situation, that empathy is not there. And then you basically break the will of people to fight. So that would be my long answer to you. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I mean, I agree with most parts of what you're saying. To put some color onto that, I was speaking with the Pune Police Commissioner, Dr. Venkatesham, who's a very fine man. And I said to him, Dr. Saab, my dissonance is that for the 50 years I have lived in Pune, and I'm particularly sensitive to the fact that India is the capital of the world when it comes to fatalities from road accidents. Whatever be the causes, but that's the net result. But मैंने आज तक ऐसा कभी नहीं देखा कि जब लोग 30, 40, 50% लोग बिना हेलमेट के राइडिंग करते हैं तो फिर पुलिस वाले क्या करते हैं 99.9% ऑफ द टाइम कुछ नहीं करते हैं ऑन द अदर हैंड किसी ने अगर मास्क नहीं पहना या somebody steps out for a morning or evening walk, you are caning them, you are making them do exercises in the middle of the road to humiliate them. आपने उनके हाथ में बोर्ड लगा दिया कि मैं देशद्रोही हूँ, मैं गधा हूँ, etc. I mean, where is proportion in the way we are treating our own people? You talked of compassion. I'm giving you the example that I've seen with my own eyes over here. I've seen senior citizens being caned for simply stepping out to get some fresh air. We hear stories of people from Japan to the US getting $1,000 a person, not as a stimulus, as support. So we are not even talking stimulus here. We are just talking support, whether it is for big business, small business, and for individuals. I am not aware of how authentic these numbers are, but I am told in many places in the world, 2/3 of the what the government has handed out has gone to organizations and to people as direct benefits, whereas in India it's been only 10%. I mean, you would be better placed to comment on why this is so. Why have we not chosen to put more directly in the hands of people?
Well, it's frankly been shocking to me and shocking to us in the Congress party, including ex-Prime Minister, Finance Minister, ex-Finance Minister and others. And I've been trying to figure this out myself. So a couple of days back, I sent a feeler to some of the government people. I said, I don't understand why you're not giving a stimulus. Because logically to me, it just makes absolute sense. And I said, look, forget the politics of it. Just give me the logic of it. Because I want to understand the logic. I don't understand the logic. And the response I got, it was a couple bullet points. Point number one, there is a huge opportunity for India with regards to China. Point number two, if we give a handout to our labor now, bigad jayenge, basically, they will get spoiled and they will not come back from their villages. Point number three, we might send a wrong message to the international community who we will need to invest in us. And point number four, later we might consider giving money to these laborers and small and medium businesses. Image is based on strength. Strength can never be based on image. But here, you're defending the image and you're destroying the strength. The strength, whoever is going to invest in India is going to invest not because of your image, they're going to invest because of what you are, what you have. And what you are and what you have is your economy. So the first logic has to be defend that economy. And if you defend that economy well, you will have an image and you will succeed in inviting whoever you want over here. But if you don't have an economy left, well, there's nothing.
I strongly believe that a large country like India cannot save itself out of trouble. It has to sell itself out of trouble. We have to get demand going again. We have to provide something that lifts the mood of the people. We need some mood elevators out there. And I do not understand why there is no strong initiative, even if it is for a period of 6 months, 1 year, to strongly lift the mood of the people and provide a stimulus to demand.
The economy slowed down before Corona.
Of course.
Unemployment was becoming a serious problem before Corona. And now Corona has sort of pushed it over the edge. How do you see India taking care of its unemployment problem? How do we think about it moving forward? Of course, you're a part of the puzzle. Small and medium industry is a much bigger part of the puzzle. How do you unleash this manufacturing, which I believe is absolutely critical. I mean, I'm not one of those people who thinks that India can be built without manufacturing.
Right.
So how do we start competing on the global stage?
The other day, I was interviewing a potential senior candidate out of Brazil, because Bajaj is now looking at going to Brazil. And I asked him a question. I said, Honda is so dominant in Brazil. The other Japanese have not been able to dislodge Honda. Why do you think Bajaj has a chance? And he said something very simple, but often the truth resides in simple things. He says, in Bajaj, I see a combination of European design, Japanese quality, and Indian prices. And I think this is a magic formula for so many Indian companies. It doesn't matter whether you're making a mixer grinder or a motorcycle or whatever it is. I think the world can be your oyster if you look at it from this lens. So I think demand generation starts with wanting to play at a global platform. Next, this automatically means that then you have to narrow down the things that you're doing. I mean, if you want to be Mahendra Singh Dhoni, you cannot play 6 sports at the same time. Everybody knows that. A great chef, a great sports person, a great doctor, a great musician, they all specialize. Companies must specialize. I think the simple meaning of strategy is specialization.
But in what you said, I found one thing very interesting, which was you said Japanese technology, European styling, and Indian prices. Right? I got that right?
Absolutely.
What you're basically saying is India is a bridge. India is a connecting bridge between different cultures, between different systems. And I think that's something that India's historically been very good at. And if you look when we've been successful, we've always operated as a connector, whether it is in our sort of foreign policy, whether it is in our business system, whether it is in our philosophy. We have the ability which not many countries and civilizations have of absorbing. That's a powerful thing for us.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's a very valid point. I never looked at it like that. And I think I was just asking myself as you were speaking, why is this the case? Of course, it is partly our temperament, I suppose. Partly it's our proficiency in English, I suppose, etc. But more than anything, I think when I reflect on that, it is because we are very open as a people. I don't mean this negatively. I would say we demonstrate more openness to understand, to learn. Sometimes maybe we are in awe of them. That's why we do it. Maybe sometimes it is genuinely we are intellectually turned on by something. But whatever it is, we are very open as a people. We are very open as a country. It may work against us sometimes. This openness, should never be lost. This is very important, as you were saying, whether it's in terms of government or in terms of business.
But you said openness, right? And we are open, our civilization is open, because there has been traditionally a certain tolerance in our country. I mean, jo kehna keh do, right? And that's been the case. One gets the sense that has reduced significantly over the last couple of years. I mean, I'll be candid with you. Yesterday, a friend of mine asked me, what's your next interview? And I said, I'm, speaking to Bajaj, Mr. Bajaj. And the guy said, dum hai bande mein. So I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he's got guts to speak to you, right? And that is the sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I tell you what my experience is. In fact, very similar to yours. I shared with someone yesterday that kal 12 baje I'm speaking with Rahul and this thing. And the first reaction was, don't do it. I said, but why not? Nahi mat karna. This can get you into trouble. I said, but I may have said some things perhaps a little too vehemently, but I have said it on NDTV. I have said it on in the Economic Times newspaper. I have said it on Aaj Tak. I have said it on so many channels, so many media. So, अब गलती है तो फिर गलती हो चुकी है. एक और बार हो गया. जैसे नहीं, मीडिया में बोलना एक बात है, but राहुल गांधी से बातें करना एक दूसरा बात है. So then I pushed that actually a bit. I'll tell you very candidly. I said, यार we are going to talk about business, economics, lockdown, what to do, how to move forward, technology, products. He loves motorcycles. I'm sure he will talk about motorcycles, etc. अब ये बातें भी नहीं हो सकती है क्या? So that person maintained that why take a risk?
Do you think this sort of mahal that you spoke about of fear damages business in any way?
नहीं, देखिए, nobody will invest unless he does so with enthusiasm and confidence. तो इसमें तो कोई डाउट है नहीं. अब सवाल ये उठता है हिंदुस्तान में कि if 100 people are afraid to speak up, the first point is perhaps 90 of them anyway have something to hide. See, we must also accept that in the last few years, towards, I would say, UPA 2 and NDA 1, a lot of skeletons have come out of the cupboard also. So businessmen are also not doodh ka dhula hua, you know. So and so many examples we have seen of that. So maybe, I mean, my view is a lot of people don't speak, unlike, if I may say so, somebody like my father, simply because perhaps they can't afford to speak, you know. So it may be fear, but the question is fear of what? Maybe they have a fear of hiding something. Second, I would say there are people, and I think I think highly of such people who do not want to speak, you know, who simply do not want to, because they cannot deal with the backlash that comes their way. You know, and I think a little bit I fall into that category. I mean, there's a reason I'm not on any social media. And without naming a couple of channels, I will say to you that even yesterday, I had an invite from the most prominent channel that is very pro-government, if I may say so. And I refuse to be on such channels because, you know, the kind of stuff one hears on social media or the way one sees things conducted in panels on such channels, this is deeply distressing to anybody who is remotely sensitive. You know, so I think, yes, in terms of being tolerant, in terms of being sensitive, I think India needs to mend a couple of things.
Final question. Now we're in the process of opening up. How do you think about your supply chain as we open up? When does your supply chain actually start to function at a reasonable level? What
Rahul,
opening up do we require?
See, I am not seeing that smooth, concerted, rhythmic movement towards unlocking. Yes, I understand based on what I have heard yesterday also that we are moving in that direction. But I think a kind of aligned approach that is required. One person will say one thing. I don't know whether that is to be the chief minister of the state or the DM or whoever it is supposed to be. And everybody in an aligned way must go forward. This is not happening. And I think the blame for this rests again with the kind of fear we created in the first place, you know, that infection is equal to death. And today, as infections rise, people are still carrying this thing. So I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question directly, but I am really distressed because it is a Herculean task to open up. I think the first problem is to get this fear out of the minds of the people. There has to be a very clear, aligned narrative, I would say, from the Prime Minister, because, you know, right or wrong, when he says something, people seem to follow. I think he needs to stand up and say to everyone that this is how we are going to move forward. It's all under control. Do not fear infections. No, almost nobody is dying, you know, and we have to move forward now.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Rajiv. Lovely.
Thank you so much time. So much time you spent with me. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.